August 17th. We're going to go over the astrology for the 17th through the 23rd this whole week. So we've got a few things going on, including a new moon later this week. But till we get there, we'll talk about a few things leading up to that. So last week, Mercury turned direct in Leo after 3 weeks in retrograde. Mars in Libra was coming off that kite formation with the outer planets. It was opposing the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, forming a grand trine with Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. And since mid last week, both that Mercury in Leo and Mars in Libra have been chatting in a sextile, 60 degrees. So it's kind of background noise, almost information. That is still with us. So we're entering the week. Literally today it'll be exact again for the second time on Sunday here. And it's going to drift with us the rest of the week. And so this is a conversation that has a lot to do with, external influences combining with what we've learned about ourselves in terms of our self-expression, our uniqueness, etc. And so there's a conversation happening that couldn't have happened a few weeks ago or a few months ago. But it's only because of that inner work we've done that now we're able to incorporate some external influence, some external stimulation to combine with that internal learning and understanding within ourselves, okay? So that's still going on. And what's really interesting with that is as we get toward midweek, like around Thursday time frame, plus or minus, this is when Mars in Libra will oppose the point where the solar eclipse from late March. So the last eclipse season was in March. The next one's coming up here in September. And that final solar eclipse we had in March was around 9 degrees Aries. Mars will be about 9 degrees Libra here around Wednesday, Thursday time frame. Still in that sextile to Mercury in Leo. Okay, so it's almost like this discussion coming off of that kite formation with Mars and that Mercury retrograde in Leo. They're talking, and then there's something about this week where there's a breakthrough. And it's that breakthrough that has to do with that solar eclipse from back in March. And it's not coincidental, because nothing happens in a vacuum, that we're kind of finishing up energy from those eclipses just before we start the energy for the new eclipses, which are coming up here, in a few weeks, okay? So we're in a transition zone here. And around Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe, the sun will still be in Leo, and it's going to form a trine to Chiron in the late degrees of Aries. And this, to me, is a reminder of how far we've come, how much we've learned about our capacity, about our sovereignty, about trusting that, okay? So it's a reminder of that, because we've got some challenges coming up, okay? And so we're being reminded of that just as, again, that solar eclipse from back in March comes into play. And that solar eclipse in Aries had a lot to do with our individuality and birthing a new individuality, okay? And with all the outer planets that we have setting up for their move into 2026, it's this new world, this evolving world, that's going to require a new us, okay? And so that solar eclipse from March in Aries has a lot to do with establishing a new us. This Mercury-Mars sextile that's been chatting with each other for the last week or so stimulates that midweek, just as we're being reminded of how far we've come, how much we've learned, how ready we are to be in our sovereignty, essentially. Then we get to the end of the week. Sun will enter Virgo on Friday, and immediately that evening, Friday night into Saturday, will be a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. Very significant, because that's the first degree of the zodiac for Virgo, and that is going to be forming some aspects with those same outer planets, Uranus, Pluto, and then the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So while Mars was forming a kite formation, which is a little more directed and focused, this will be forming what's known as a yod in combination with a square. So it'll be squaring Uranus in Gemini, and it'll be forming a quincunx to both Pluto and Aquarius, as well as to the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. That is known as the finger of God. It's a very fated kind of energy. And because we have this new moon at 0 degrees Virgo, it's establishing this new focus, this new function, really is probably another good keyword for Virgo, a new function. And that new function has a lot to do with what we're realizing about ourselves, our individual uniqueness within this world as it's changing around us, okay? So it's going to require some adjustment. Yods always have to do with adjustment. So there's a major awareness coming in with this as well, with Uranus squaring that new moon in Gemini. It's sort of a toothpaste out of the tube analogy, where once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know it, you can't unknow it. So there's a certain clarity coming up about what we're here to do. Okay, we won't probably take much action toward that, this coming week or anything, because the coming months are going to be more about clearing the space for that. But there's an awareness of what it is that can come in as soon as next week. Okay, so this new moon's Friday night to Saturday. The following weeks, they're entering into September. There could be some really massive revelations about, whoa, this is my function here. This is my true function here. After all I've learned about myself, gone inside, had to balance the external influences with my internal knowings. What conclusions am I coming to? Okay, and then that is going to require adjustment over the coming months. Okay, what also happens within a couple hours of that new moon in Virgo is a square between Venus in Cancer and Chiron in Aries. And what this is, coming again on the heels of that reminder of how far we've come and how much work we've actually accomplished, it's a challenge, it's a tinge, it's a temptation toward dependency. There's something that says in us, oh, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I do need some help, and I haven't figured it all out yet, and I'm not ready. There's that internal question mark, but that comes, for a reason, because we need to explore that. We need to explore what it is we still doubt about ourselves. Okay, where is that self-doubt? What does it come from? And can it fit in with this new focus, this new function that we're discovering about ourselves with this new moon? Okay, and this new moon is at 0 degrees Virgo. We will have a solar eclipse on September 21st, a month later, that will be at 29 degrees Virgo. So 2 new moons in Virgo, one here at 0 degrees saying, here's the new function that we're aware of now. And that 29 degree Virgo eclipse in September, that is going to be on the south node. That is in an exit point. So that is exiting the old function, exiting the old focus. What do we think? What was the only thing we thought we were good for in this life? And it's coming to terms with that and saying, no, that's not true for me. And part of that realization is this Friday night Venus square to Chiron, right? It is kind of reminding us of our self-doubts. But that eclipse in September will have a way of flushing the doubts out, flushing it out, making way for this 0 degree Virgo new moon that we have this week so that we can establish that new function in the world. Okay, and as that new moon is happening, it's again forming one of its part of that yod is a quincunx to that Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, which has been in a 1 degree orb since early June. It starts to break up right after this new moon. So they start pulling away from that 1 degree orb. They will be back in February for the exact conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. Okay, but this whole period that will unravel after these eclipses in September, the months that follow to finish up 2025 and enter us into early 2026, just as that conjunction between Saturn and Neptune happens in Aries at 0 degrees, this is the clearing period. We are clearing, we're coming to the realization over the coming weeks of what our function is in this new evolving world. And then we're also being reminded of how far we've come. We're being challenged with any lingering self-doubts, but then we're leading to this clearing period so that we are ready for it in early 2026. So a lot going on. If you look at the surface, you might just say, oh, we got a new moon, we got this, we got that. But if you look at it in the bigger picture, look at how it all connects. Look at how this 0 degrees Virgo new moon relates to the 29 degrees Virgo solar eclipse on the south node. That's an exit point. We're bringing in a new function, releasing an old function, basically. Okay, and so some major revelations could come to us later this week into next week with that Uranus and Gemini squaring that new moon, and there's no way to go back at that point. So anyway, we'll leave it at there. If you have any questions, do ask. If you're interested in my summer special, follow me on Facebook. I post a link to that summer special, which is almost over here. We're coming up to the end of August here, and we can go over your chart with how these planets and these aspects are interacting with it specifically. And do follow me on other socials. If this is YouTube for you, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, you can find me pretty much anywhere. Sovereign Harmony, Christopher Taylor. Either way, good way to contact me. And so thanks for joining me. Again, this is Sunday, August 17th. We're talking about through August 23rd. And we'll be back on August 23rd for that weekly update. Until then, we'll see you.